Welcome back, Suzuki parents. Sensei here. In this video, I want to talk about the Japanese philosophy of Wabi-Sabi and how it applies to our Suzuki philosophy. So Wabi-Sabi is very difficult to translate into a Western concept. We just don't really have anything like it. So the best way that we can explain it is that Wabi-Sabi is the perfection of imperfection. Also thinking of it as seeing things as they are without judgment. And I also like to think of it as being comfortable with impermanence. Trying your best to be comfortable with things that are ever changing. So Wabi-Sabi. How does this apply to music lessons or the Suzuki philosophy? So in Suzuki, children constantly learn pieces or review pieces that they have already previously learned. And so it's not a linear fashion for the learning, it's layered. It happens in cycles and circles. So we often return to earlier pieces in the repertoire to learn more advanced concepts. So we often use things like twinkles and perpetual motion to learn how to shift vibrato to play in a different position. So we always come back to it to learn something on an even deeper level. So they're all a work in progress. Everything is always constantly a work in progress. We're constantly reviewing it. And the point is it's about the journey and not the destination. It's so cliche. I'm sure you've heard that before, but it's true. So we're gaining everything we can from the process and not really trying so much to worry about the end goal here, but we're trying to be more comfortable with the process that's actually happening right now and staying in that present moment. That's when you're going to get the most out of your Suzuki violin journeys, when you can do that. However, it's very uncomfortable to go through the process of learning. I mean, there's a lot of frustration, and that can happen if we don't try to practice this concept of wabi-sabi, which is understanding that it is messy. It's going to be messy, and it's okay. And we can try to find a space for calm and comfort in that mess, right? We are embracing the perfection of imperfection. It's not great, it's not good right now, but we're gonna find what is working and go for that and enjoy that. Or just look at it from just wow, like just the amazement, the wonder that comes from a child learning how to do something so difficult, just observing that child doing it. It's like, it doesn't sound great, but you know what? My child is happy, they're healthy enough to even be able to play this, that sort of thing. Appreciating the child for the child, appreciating all the things that they have done so far. It's like, yeah, the new concept does not sound very nice right now. I'm having a difficult time listening to it, but look at all the things that they can do well. Look at all the time that we've put in to them learning how to hold their instrument or hold their bow. That looks really good. That's going really, really well. And understanding that, there's an impermanence here. Okay, that looks great. And in time, the other things will catch up. They will come along, right? So trying to find a way to be as comfortable with the fact that it's not perfect and it's not always going to stay the same. It really helps relieve frustration for you as a parent as well as the student learning throughout the process. So if we can try to get to that place, that really, really helps. And then also this idea of impermanence, right? So we review these pieces, right? But they're not always going to be in tip-top shape, right? We take a piece from start to finish, meaning it's highly polished, it's acceptable, it's in an acceptable place for it to be performed. That's when we finish a piece. And that's sort of the goal that we're going to try to reach. But that piece is not going to stay there for very long. And that's sort of the maddening thing about this whole process and why the journey is more important, is because you'll spend 10 months learning a piece, and then the 11th month is just the last little bit where you polish it and perform it. It's just 99% of the time is the process, is the journey, and then that one little tiny percent is a glimpse of perfection, if you will. But it doesn't stay there if we don't continue to review it. So they come and go, you know. So each piece not only gives us an opportunity to learn skills for the violin, but each piece gives us opportunity to continue to develop our character, our ability to deal with impermanent things, with things that are always changing in the world, our ability to be able to, I think pivot is the current term that's in vogue, to be able to make adjustments to when things happen that are out of our control, or things happen that are not expected. So each piece gives us a chance to repeat that cycle, and hopefully students can translate that into other areas of their lives. So being comfortable with the fact that things are not permanent, they don't stay the same, this idea of impermanence, that the process is the important part, and we should be comfortable with that and focused on what's happening right now, more so than the end goal. If you can do that, you'll have a much more rewarding and less frustrating experience as a Suzuki parent, and understand that things just aren't, they're never done. We're not going to check anything off. It's a continuous thing. So if you can't embrace that idea, things will be difficult and frustrating for you. Let's see, what else can I say on Wabi-Sabi, the perfection of imperfection. That does come from nature, is kind of what we're saying. Like, each tree is different, all leaves are different, so you may have the same kind of tree, say an oak tree, but no two oak trees are exactly the same. But that's what makes them so beautiful to look at, so great, is their imperfection. We can apply that with the concept of every child can. Every child can learn to play the violin, but every child is different, and every child learns at their own rate. So we're not trying to change the child's personality in any way whatsoever by going through the Suzuki Violin program. And we're not expecting a child to learn at the same rate as any other child. Why? Because they're all unique in their own way, and we respect that about each child as an individual, whole human being. So it's a Wabi-Sabi for kids and personality, and every child can. What else can I say? How else does Wabi-Sabi connect to Suzuki philosophy? We've talked about repertoire and pieces. We've talked about every child can. We've talked about the process, that's messy process. Oh, one thing that does happen is that, here's a scenario. So you're in a lesson and your child is playing variation A, the taka-taka stop-stop. And all week you've been working on this one particular thing, saying getting the first finger in tune on the tape. And it was fine. And so the child comes to the lesson and they cannot do it. And then as a parent, the parent will make a comment and say something like, well, you could do it fine at home, I don't understand why, or that you don't even have to say anything as a parent. You can shift in your chair or sigh or something like that. And parents do this because they have difficulty with being uncomfortable if their child is doing something incorrect. And it's not that the child is doing something incorrect, it's that the parent thinks the teacher is placing judgment on them as a parent in their parenting skills or their work as a home teacher, when in fact that's not true at all. We very much understand that things still happen in the studio as they do outside, and that your child is a whole human being detached from you, right? So what your child is doing is not necessarily a reflection of what the parent has done or what the parent has taught. And that goes for both violin skills and life skills, character development. Sometimes the things that come out of kids' mouths, I mean, whew, you know, you look at them like, you're not my kid. I mean, I didn't say that. I never taught that to you. I don't know where that came from. I mean, they are whole individual beings that are not an extension of you. So please understand that there is no judgment on the teacher's part. If there is any judgment on the teacher's part, you might want to find a different teacher. So keep that in mind, you know, that the teacher's not judging your parenting or your home teaching skills when the child does something just because it happened, you know. So another idea is when we try to make, when we're working on building skills, if a child is doing something incorrect, we approach it with this Wabi-Sabi philosophy. That is, we see things as they are without judgment. So this finger is out of tune. It just is out of tune. We need to work on that skill. We're going to use discernment instead of judgment to form a plan on how we can make it better, and then go from there. We're not going to be nice by overpraising things that don't sound good. That distorts the child's perception of what is correct and incorrect. So that's not good for them, both technically on the violin and then just character development. So we're not going to overpraise for things that are not correct. We're also not going to go to the other end of this spectrum where we're applying judgment or being overly stern. So when a child does something unskillful, we're not attaching shame, guilt, and anger to it. Okay, so we're going right down the middle. What we're doing is being kind. We're setting boundaries. We're setting rules and expectations without attaching any emotion to it whatsoever. It's just a fact. This is how it is, and this is how we're going to move forward. There's no judgment on you as a person. So because you're unskillful or you're doing something wrong or bad, that doesn't mean you are a bad person. It means that we need to work on this skill. There's no good, bad, right, wrong sort of thing attached to it as how it attaches to you as a person. So I hope I'm making that clear, right? So just because you're playing something incorrectly doesn't mean that you're bad for playing it incorrectly, right? We get this a lot in traditional music lessons. A lot of people talk about how they had to undo a lot of this programming or trauma from traditional lessons because teachers would assume that a person was bad because they were doing this action. You're bad because this isn't sounding better. You must have not practiced it. Versus you might not have all the underlying skills, the basic skills that we need to be able to do this. So we need to break it down into smaller groups. We'll just make it so that you can achieve it. Okay, so we're always one little tiny bar ahead or above what the child can do as our expectation. So the child may be here and our expectation is right here, right above it, okay? And when we are here with what the child can do versus here is where our expectation is, and then there's just too much of a space here, that's when frustration sets in. So anyway, what we're trying to do is find a sense of calm and quiet internally as we're going through this messy process. And when something occurs that is not correct or unskillful, we approach it from this middle way, this kind way where we set boundaries and we set goals, but we come up with a plan through discernment instead of judgment or overpraising, being nice by telling children that things are good when they're not good. I think that's about it for the Wabi-Sabi concept. It's very hard to define. I hope I'm making myself clear, and of course you can read more about it. You can find other videos. I'll try to post more videos about what Wabi-Sabi is. Okay, so just don't expect things to be perfect. We're not reaching for perfection. We're reaching for mastery of self and of violin skills. And we're trying to enjoy the process and find some calm in the impermanent, imperfect process. So thanks for watching.